we're talking trace evidence today. The crime scene is comprised of two major elements. One, which we call the macro scene, which is everything visible, and the micro scene, which is everything invisible. Even fingerprints that are latent prints, I define as part of the macro scene because they're not microscopic. So anything that's microscopic, like hairs, fibers, little pieces of dust, anything like that, glass shards, are things which I consider part of the micro scene. So for every macro scene you have at the crime scene, there's an associated micro scene. It could be gunshot residue, it could be bacteria, it could be semen, saliva, which is typically macro scene, but it could also be micro scene because you're dealing with microscopic elements. So what we need to learn today is how do you collect these trace evidence materials. And there are three methods that are typically used at a crime scene. One we call the hunt and peck method, which is just exactly that. You got yourself a flashlight, you got some tweezers, you've got an envelope to put it in, and you look for them and you find them and you put them in the envelope. Typically you don't get a lot of material doing that. The next method is the taping method, where you take a piece of adhesive tape, and they're specially made tapes for evidence, and you put the tape down and you lift it up, and then you protect it with some saran wrap or some other sort of material that can be removed from the tape without removing the evidence. And the third method is using a vacuum cleaner. Now you can use a regular vacuum cleaner in your house as long as you have a filter attached to it that'll trap all the materials. And the amount of material you collect goes in the progression of hunt and peck, taping, vacuum cleaning. Vacuum cleaning is a last resort type of thing. It's used for most situations other than looking at things on clothing or for chairs and sofas. It would be used perhaps in a car where you're looking at the floorboards of the car or somewhere in that kind of an area. So what I'm going to show you now is how to do, we'll do the hunt and peck method first, and you do this with two light sources. You'll use the alternate light source, but you'll start off with a flashlight. So somebody get me a flashlight, and somebody get me, we need to take the front off, don't we? And your flashlight does this kind of thing. You want to keep it nice and focused. And I'm going to need one of those, yeah? Because you have to, if you find something, you have to put it in an envelope of some kind. Now on these envelopes, you'll notice that there's a lot of information. There's a case number, an item number, your name, which would be officer or criminalist, description of what you find, and then perhaps even some other information about it. But you always want to make sure you fill this information out. I'm just going to take one for now. Now, this is what is known as a druggist fold, and it's basically a piece of paper which has been folded like this. So what you're going to be doing is you'll be putting the evidence inside here, and then you're going to fold it down, and then you'll seal it with evidence tape. And then it gets turned into the laboratory like this. All right, so how do we do this? I need some tweezers. Let me have one of those yellow packs. Sometimes it's easier to see things with the lights out, a little bit darker. And you're going to do, let me have some tweezers. And you can already begin to see some materials on here. Like here's some little guys, and you pick them up one at a time and put them in. And what you'll do is you'll grid off an area with tape, and you'll search one area. This would be like 1A. So you would take a photograph of this area, and you would say this is grid 1A, and you could even mark it and make sure it's in the photograph. And then all of the items that you collect would be description, item number 1A. And so that you could even you could say hunt and peck hairs, fibers, dust particles, whatever it is you collect. You may not even know what it is you collect. And so you would go through the whole thing and very carefully collect items. Like here's something that looks like a fiber or a piece of wood or something. And you never know what's going to be important. So you're going to have to do the whole thing. Now, I spent 3 weeks in a house one time doing the entire carpeting in the entire house, collecting evidence this way. I don't suggest you do that. That wasn't a whole lot of fun, but it's something that had to be done. Now, another way to do this is to use the alternate light source. And we'll need goggles, so we're going to have to put goggles on for this. Hand me, we'll need amber goggles. Could somebody hand me a pair of amber goggles? Okay, good. This is part of the hunt and search, hunt and peck. And you're going to be using 2 wavelengths in general. Actually, you could use 3. The white light works very well as well. It's a pretty powerful light, so you can see things pretty easily. The ultraviolet light will sometimes highlight things. When you use the ultraviolet light, you don't use your goggles. You'll use clear goggles, and you can see the fluorescence. You see fluorescence? And so you would be picking these up. Now, one of the things I don't know is whether or not these materials are part of the carpet or there's something else. They appear like they're part of the carpet because I'm not having trouble picking them up. So we're not going to worry about it. We can pick one up just for jollies. But I have other pieces here that appear like this is not part of the carpet. That was something that has to be picked up. So the white light, ultraviolet light, which is a 300 or 400, that's long wave ultraviolet light. And then the crime scene search setting. And you're looking for other things that might be fluorescing, and you'll need your orange goggles for this. And oftentimes you'll find some brightly orange fluorescent fibers. Sometimes you won't. There's a brightly orange fluorescent guy there. You see him? Okay, so this would be picked up. Some of these other things would be picked up. Anything you see is going to be picked up. Because you just don't know whether they're going to be important or not. This is the CSS setting. It's the crime scene, what they call the crime scene search setting. There's another one of these little bright orange fluorescent things. And then you've got other things here that would have to be picked up. There's a fiber there that's fluorescing bright orange. Some other little guys here. So you pick all these things up, put them in your envelope, and you know. Now this typically would be labeled item number 1, and then you would have 1A, perhaps 1A, and perhaps 1B, so you know exactly the location where these things were found. Now, the next level of collection is using tape. Could I have one of those blue tapes, please? And you keep your grid, so I've got it gridded halfway, and what I would do is I would take tape like this, and starting at one end, and you start collecting stuff. And you can use the tape over again until it sort of runs out of sticky material. Generally 4 or 5 passes will be enough.